passenger pointed what appeared to be a high-powered rifle in the direction of the officer and declared that this was a robbery. Certainly the officer, having the presence of mind, responded, firing a number of shots, ultimately striking the suspect. It's been determined that the wound, he did sustain a gunshot wound, but it was a minor. He's been treated, and what I'm told, he's been released. But there is an outstanding suspect, the driver of the vehicle, who we have his name, and we're going to ask for the public's help in bringing him into custody. That suspect, as it was described earlier to you, he's a black male, but his name is Timothy Sims. Again, Timothy Sims. He's 24 years old. We have a picture, and this would be the picture of Timothy Sims. So again, we're asking for the public's help. He was an acquaintance of the suspect who was armed with the weapon, and we need him to turn himself in. We will take him into custody without incident. We know who he is. We will find him, and we will arrest him. So at this time, asking if you have any questions. Oh, by the way, I do want to make one other note. I did have a conversation with the mother of the person that was treated for the gunshot wound. She's been very cooperative. I want to acknowledge her for being the kind of parent who's concerned, and certainly our prayers go out for a speedy recovery for her son. And so with that, any questions you might have?
What's the status of the officer? Like, is he back at work today? What's his status?
Well, because he's involved, like, you know, we restrict their duty until they can go through the normal processes. I've had a conversation with the officer, as well as I indicated with the mother.
This could have turned out a lot worse.
Could have, certainly. The officer had the presence of mind. You know, there's a couple of notes. I mean, the training certainly kicked in, but recognizing that he had an acquaintance with him, he directed her, when he saw the returning vehicle, for her to conceal herself so that she would not be exposed to what he believed to be an emerging dangerous situation.
Chief, is there any belief that he was targeted for being a cop, or was he essentially in the wrong place at the wrong time?
We don't have any information that the suspect was aware that he was a police officer. But again, this officer has very little time on the job, but certainly we believe his training kicked in at the right time, and he responded accordingly. It could have been a different outcome, certainly for him and his acquaintance, and certainly we're happy that it appears that the suspect's going to recover from his injuries.
What can you tell us about him? What information can you tell us about the suspect you do that was treated for injuries?
I don't want to go into detail about him. I just want to go into detail about the one who's outstanding. I know that, I believe you have his name on the suspect that we have in custody, and I believe the mother made a plea to you that she's also aware of who it is, and she's been very cooperative. So we acknowledge her willingness to work with us through this matter.
Is he still in the hospital? Sorry.
I believe the information we just got that he has been released, treated for his injuries, and released into custody.
Chief, a lot of commenters are noting, you know, we had 10 or more shots fired. The guy only comes out with a graze wound. Is this something where the officer gets sent back to the range, or is this attributed to inexperience, or?
No, I wouldn't call it inexperience. Unless you've been in a situation where you've been faced with an imminent threat, you can have all the training in a very sterile environment. It really, we hope what kicks in that you can, through repeated training, that you can respond to a threat. But it's chaotic, it's stressful, and that goes for whether it's a police officer or anyone else. I would tell you that clearly these suspects probably believed they had an easy mark. They saw two what appeared to be young people, and they thought it would be an easy mark. And unfortunately for him, he was met with a Detroit police officer. And it goes in the same line with, you know, community members, Detroit citizens who have CPLs when suspects don't know who they're confronting. We've seen a number of these cases, and so we've seen a reduction in robberies, we've seen a reduction in carjacking. I got to believe not only from the great work that the men and women of the Detroit Police Department but also the fact that they know that there are a number of Detroit residents who are armed. And so it makes someone think twice. And so these suspects probably believe this was an easy target.
Do you know what charges they could face?
I'm not at this point. We're still putting together that information. Certainly it could be attempt robbery, it could be attempt murder. But they're putting that information together right now. I want to also acknowledge the work of our homicide team. Captain Mouse, our newly assigned commanding officer of homicide, is here. As always, just doing a phenomenal work. And the investigation is continuing as we speak.